Yeah, I know Rollies are cool, man. That's why I'm gonna go buy... No, I'm gonna buy one right now. No, I'm gonna go online and buy a motherfucking Rollie for my motherfucking wrist. Right now. Fine, bye. Whoa, there's like a ton of Rollies to choose from. Wait. Whoa! Whoa! Who the fuck are you? I'm the time teller. Okay, I don't care. Please leave. Look, man, I'm going to buy a Rollie whether you like it or not. It's your funeral, buddy. Whoa! Whoa! What's going on, everybody? I'm Jory Goodman, the time teller. Now, today I want to talk about choosing the perfect watch. Now, if you remember in the past, I did a video about how to buy a watch. And in that video, I went over kind of the basic things you need to be aware of so you don't get screwed. So if you haven't seen that video, please click the link in the description below. Go ahead, watch that one because it has some very good information in it. And hey, click that subscribe button. It only takes 1 second and it helps me out a ton. Okay, so today I want to speak more specifically about the differences in watches so that maybe when you're in the market for a watch, you can go ahead, take some of this information, find out what you like, and then go ahead and buy one for yourself. Without further ado, it is 6:57 p.m. Let's get down to business. Okay guys, so if you can see here, I kind of got a little pile of watches going on, but for the purpose of this video, I pulled a few watches out of my personal collection, a few of which you'll be pretty familiar with if you watch my channel at all, but my intent with this video is to kind of exemplify just how different watches can be from one another. And so if you're just getting into watches, or if you're a budding watch enthusiast, hopefully you can see something you like in this video and then you can go out and make a more educated decision when buying a watch for yourself. So just like any other interest or hobby, there's certain terminology that gets thrown around. So for watches, people talk about indexes, complications, dials, cases, style, features, movements, size, material, and I'm going to try to cover all of these things quickly within this video. So first, let's talk about style. Alright, so there's actually many different kinds of watches out there. You have sports watches, you have dress watches, you have pilot's watches, you even have watches made for doctors. You can break it down very, very specifically, but first let's talk about sports watches. Okay, so what is a sports watch? Well, if we look at the origin of the term, I guess it would be a watch that you could play a sport in. Go figure. And I know this is going to make a lot of people upset, but the Reverso was actually designed as a sports watch and not a dress watch, okay? It was designed to play polo in, and last time I checked, polo is a legit sport, okay? That's going to make a lot of people's skin crawl to hear that, but it's the truth. Now, I don't have a JLC Reverso here, but we're going to make do with the 4 watches that I pulled for you today. Now, sports watches are probably going to be pretty robust pieces. Maybe they have a water resistance rating. They're going to be very tough. You're not going to have to worry about them. You can be pretty mobile with a sports watch. They typically come on a metal bracelet, but not always, okay? And often, sports watches are called tool watches. Now, that's a very interesting term. So, what is a tool watch? Well, the cool thing about these watches is they were actually designed out of necessity, okay? So someone in the past had a very specific job or skill set, and they needed a watch to be able to go with them and do the things that they need to do. For instance, divers, okay? This is a perfect example of a diving watch. So someone way back when, a diver, realized that his watch was not cutting it. Every time he went underwater to a certain depth, it would break, or maybe it wasn't waterproof at all, so they designed diver's watches. I have a really good example of a diver's watch right here, the Seiko SRP 641 Baby Tuna. So what does a diver's watch have? Well, probably has some water resistance rating at some sort of depth, and this is 200 meters. Probably has a bezel. You typically see divers watches with big rotating bezels.
And another really cool feature of diving watches is a threaded crown. You hear me talking about threaded crowns all the time. So a threaded crown is a crown that you can actually screw into the case, thus creating a very positive watertight seal, okay? Making it that much more robust and safe to take with you on your deep dives, okay? Another really cool example of a tool watch is this Citizen Nighthawk, okay? Again, someone had a very specific skill set and they needed a watch to be able to go with them. So this is an example of a pilot's watch. See, there's some planes right here and there on the 24-hour indicators. So this actually has a really neat function. It has a pilot's slide rule so that they can, I believe it measures how much fuel they have on their journeys. I don't really know how to use it because I'm not a pilot, but if you were a pilot, I'm sure you would find this watch very, very handy. All right, now let's talk about dress watches, another style of watch. So what is a dress watch? Well, a dress watch is typically a more refined piece. It typically comes on some type of leather strap. It's a watch that's maybe a bit more fancy than your sports or tool watches. It's a watch that you'd throw on maybe for business or for a social gathering that requires you to be a bit more formal. Again, they're just maybe a bit more refined pieces to wear on your wrist. Again, these are these three very good examples of dress watches, but they all look quite different. So now that we're familiar with the different categories or styles of watches, at least the common ones, right? Your sports or tool watches or your dress watches, we're gonna look at sizing. Okay, so although these are both dress watches, they're quite different in size, right? This one is 43 millimeters and this one is, I think it's just 31.5. I don't think it's even 32 millimeters. So you can either go large or you can go quite small, or you can reach for that sweet spot. 38 millimeters. Okay, this Ebel 1911 chronograph, I think this is the perfect size. Okay, so now that we spoke about case size, let's look at case shape or case design. So I'm gonna zoom out here, a little bit. And okay, this FC Moon Timer, it's obviously pretty round, okay? It's pretty standard, a round case. Everybody's used to a round watch. Move that out of the way. But then things get a little bit blurry, right? So right here, this little Omega Seamaster, it's not quite round, but not quite square. I don't know what you'd call that. It's ovular, maybe, but very cool design. And then this Certina DS2 Chronolympic, this is a very common vintage case shape. And Omega, once again, this little Omega Constellation quartz, just very angular, but not totally squared off and not really round either. And then, boom, you got your Cartier tank, obviously totally squared off watch, or rectangular if you want to be all scientific about it. Okay, so we've spoken about the categories of watches, we've spoken about the size of them, we've spoken about some different case designs or shapes. So now let's talk about the movements, all right? The meat and potatoes, the things that make them tick. So just a quick crash course. This is a good example of an automatic movement. You've got essentially a rotor or a weight that will spin around as you move your arm around, and it will wind the watch for you. A self-winding movement, if you will. Get that in focus for you. Then you got your hand wound movements. So there is no battery, there's no rotor, so it's just your good old thumb and forefinger that's got to wind this baby up. But then you do have your battery powered watches. So quartz watch, this is a little Omega Constellation quartz, so this does have a simple battery in here that needs to be replaced once in a while. And then for you fancy schmancy NASA people, you got some pretty high-tech movements like this Citizen Eco Drive. So this is essentially a high-tech solar-powered watch. It'll gather light, artificial or natural. So Very, very cool. And there's pros and cons to each of them. Automatics are typically pretty reliable as long as you wear them often. Like, you don't have to worry about dying as long as this is the watch you wear every day. But if you have a bunch of watches in your collection, it's kind of a bummer unless you have a bunch of watch winders, because I'll tell you, a few of the watches I've pulled for you today are automatics, and if you've noticed, they're all set at different times because I don't wear the same watch every day. So my automatics sometimes die, and then you gotta reset them. That's kind of a bummer. But yeah, they're great watches, but again, they can be the more expensive option because there's a lot of moving parts. But I prefer automatics over any other type of movement. Hand wound movements, benefit of these is as long as you just remember to wind them up a couple times every day, they typically don't die on you, so that's kind of convenient. But I think the most convenient, far and away, are either quartz watches or the solar watch. This solar watch probably takes the cake because honestly, as long as it's just sitting there gathering light, it'll always have power. And this one, you know, as long as it's got a good battery in it, you're good to go. But again, I prefer automatic pieces. If the watch is offered as an automatic, I'll more often than not buy the automatic over anything else. So now I want to talk about complications. So complications are essentially an added function to the watch aside from just simply telling time. So you have watches like this, which are very simple. As you can see, there's not much going on with the dial, and all it does is tell time. That's fine, but then you have watches like this, which are very, very busy and complex. The Citizen Nighthawk Eco Drive. As you can see, there's a lot more going on the dial. This one tells time, but also it has a 24-hour indicator, it has a date indicator, and it has a pilot's slide rule. So it does other things aside from simply telling the time. Some more examples are, again, date indicator, but a day indicator, so you know what day it is of the week. And then you have very interesting ones like a moon phase. So this moon phase, sorry, I hit the camera there. This moon phase will actually show you the position of the moon. So when you have a full moon, there'll be a nice big moon right there in the center of the moon phase indicator. And then a very common complication that you know, you either love them or you hate them are chronographs. Okay, these chronographs, they're very desirable to some people. A lot of people hate them for some reason. They're essentially just glorified stopwatches. Okay, I think they're pretty cool. It's not that I have a very high affinity towards them. I'm just kind of in the middle. I think some of them look really cool and I think some of them look really dumb, but these two I really love. So yeah, those are some very common complications that you'll see in different watches. So I want to finish this video off by talking about indexes. Okay, indexes are where the hands go to show you what time it is. And guys, I know I am the time teller, but if you don't know how to tell analog time, should you really be on my channel? Yes, actually, you should. Stick around, you might learn how. Okay, so you have very simple indexing here with no numbers on it. You have some bolder indexing on this Seiko, but then on this FC Moon Timer, here's an example of what most people probably think of when they think of a watch. You have Arabic numerals, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. You have just the numbers you and I use every day of our lives. And then here's an example of Roman numerals. I tend to like Roman numerals on certain watches, not on every watch. I think some watches pull it off better than others, but if you have a Cartier, I mean, come on, dude. Let's go, baby. You gotta get Romans on a Cartier. I think it just sets it off. And then finally, what I wanted to bring up is the California dial. Okay, California dial has Roman numerals mixed with Arabic numerals, Get it in focus. And guys, I actually don't know the origin of the California dial. I probably should, but you know what? Leave it in the comments below. Someone do that research and teach me something in the comments below. I want to know why the California dial is known as the California dial, okay? I'd love to learn that. Someone teach me that. Thank you in advance. Okay, guys, well, hopefully you've seen something you liked. Hopefully you've seen something you didn't like. And then with that information, you can go on and buy something that you truly love. Alright guys, well thank you so much for stopping by. I hope this video helped you. And hey, whichever watch you get, please tell me about it. Send me some pics. Tell me how you like it. I'd love to hear what you guys are picking out. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with other watch enthusiasts, other people that you think would enjoy this. Make sure to click that little bell icon so you do not miss an episode of The Time Teller. Guys, I'm Jory Goodman, The Time Teller, and always remember, I didn't invent time. I just tell it.